way back in the day, it was just Chris Hendricks. And to be honest, like, it would have been amazing if we were both there at the same time. Me and Toby were just like, are you serious right now? Like, we just get all this Lucasfilm content.
Can you tell us just about Operation Blackout's music?
Actually, so is this
Look at that.
guitar and this cello bow. I remember like not being allowed to wear the beta hat or anything that would attract attention. It sounds stupid, but I got chills when I wrote that part, and normally that never happens.
There was a leak of like a whiteboard.
Someone took a picture and then it ended up on an iPad or something, and their kid released it or whatever. And
So you knew Antarctic was the director, like, for some time.
yeah, it was good. Not so secret around the office. Yeah, the Muppets were not super easy. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say.
Yeah, so it's great to talk to you. You know, tell everybody, I guess, who you are if they're not familiar with you.
Yeah, so I started working for Club Penguin back in 2007. So I wasn't an original Penguin, but I was there pretty early on. And then Disney came along and bought the company. So I was along for that wild ride. It was a super cool time. I got involved in the sound production, and then eventually like my final title was music composer. So I kind of went through all of the stages of audio through my time there. And yeah, I've been writing music since the early 2000s, and I got my start learning Pro Tools when I was still in high school. I had some really supportive band teachers, and I would just spend time after school and in my spare blocks learning that and working on music, just from nothing. So it was that's kind of my beginnings, and sort of how I gained the knowledge to get the job I got for Club Penguin.
That's awesome. We've been working on a little soundtrack project trying to archive the music in its full quality, since it was compressed by Flash and stuff over the years. And so besides that, I go by Rybo, and I run a page called Club Penguin Lore, and we talk about, like, I say lore and more, right? Talking about like the game's story, its real life lore, the meta, the history, stuff like that. So that's kind of where I fall into it. And then Blue has obviously been helping out on the project and even the page at times as well. So I guess, Blue, you can kind of introduce yourself as well.
Okay. I just go by Bluestk, but everyone just calls me Blue online. And I just been helping out with this project that was originally started by somebody else, Anhar. Credit to him. I later took over the spreadsheet and ended up updating a lot of stuff over time. It's basically finished at this point, outside of just a couple of links I need to update. But I started up with a documentation of like basically every part, since and specifically a goal I had in mind was a documentation of artists. Since an issue Club Penguin always had was that it was very little known about the artists outside of Chris Hendricks and a couple of stock songs, but there really wasn't much info to the point where some songs we weren't even sure if they were original compositions or were just from some other stock website. However, we pretty much documented almost everything I could think of. We still have some mysteries, of course, but hey, what can you do? For now, I'll just continue updating, documenting, and just talking about the game because I appreciate a lot the history, the ideas, and everything else behind it, as well as your work, Norrie.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Blue is an absolute wizard with the knowledge behind all the music. It's crazy. I don't know how you do it.
You do it by listening to the same the same 400 songs for 20 times in a row, to the point where point where you can memorize every single part of it.
That's sweet.
Yeah.
Can you recall what years you were making music for the game, for those again who aren't familiar with like your era?
As far as actually making the music, that's a great question. I don't have that written down.
Blue might know.
Yeah, I think I
I've re-
might know because I asked you a while back but you remember saying that your first composition, like you specifically remember making, was for the Warren Coates art showcase
Right.
in late 2011, like November.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. And then I think game music came along sometime in 2012.
Yeah,
So,
May 2012.
right.
I think the same month after Chris actually made his final composition, and the team tended to move towards internal staff for that kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah, because we were still working with Chris as a contractor after he left for a little bit. So, and then eventually I was able to kind of show the team I had the chops to do at least some of the music, and I did more and more. So yeah.
To kind of backtrack a bit in that story, I wanted to kind of go through the timeline a bit and see if you could maybe elaborate on how you got started with Club
Okay.
Penguin. Like, what's the story of? Were you familiar with the game? How did you hear about the job? It's just kind of that whole story and how you jumped in there.
Well, so where Club Penguin originated is kind of a, not a small town, but a medium-sized kind of town, city, whatever. And so it just so happened that not a lot, but some of my friends were already working there. And so it became kind of this word of mouth thing. And yeah, so it was a local thing. It wasn't like I moved cities or countries or anything to work for Club Penguin. I just, some of my closest friends were already working there. And so I kind of found myself at this crossroads in life, and I was pursuing a different career and schooling for that. And then, yeah, I ended up being offered this job at Club Penguin. I went in for kind of an interview with someone I knew, and he was like, "Yeah, so can you start on this date?" And I was like, "Yep, I'll do it." So, it was just like such a cool culture. That I was really drawn to, and again, I already knew a lot of people, so it was really a unique. I mean, I was still pretty young at that stage, but I'd never kind of seen a working environment like that, and just such a fun, easygoing working culture. So, but yeah, that's how I got in. And then I started just doing customer service. And then my neighbor was the original sound designer. And so I was able to, talk with him and say, hey, I'd love the opportunity to be involved in some of the sound design. Like, I do have experience doing it. And I kind of showed him a bit of what I can do. So he was really supportive of that, and getting me involved, and I was able to cover for him when he was away. And then when he left, I basically took over his role as sound designer. And then from there, I was sort of the only one on audio for a bit, and then we ended up hiring Toby, and he kind of took over as the lead, and I shifted more into the music lane to really support that for all the parties, and like just the sheer volume of music we needed every month was a lot. And then you're going through this creative pipeline, and getting things approved, and talking about the direction, doing some sketches, getting the direction approved, and then going and working to get it all supported by the team and for every party. And but yeah, it was that was kind of my journey through the ranks.
That's awesome. I'm curious how much of that you knew already, Blue. Like, did we know about like the neighbor?
I know a decent amount, mainly from word of mouth of other people who worked at the company and stuff. I know Rory O'Neill is specifically was the one you were talking about, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
That's the neighbor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, sweet.
I know him because because I'm pretty sure he was the only audio designer before you came along, Norrie, as far as I can tell.
Yeah, it started with I mean, way back in the day, it was just Chris Hendricks. Because he's just so naturally gifted in so many different ways. I believe, before any of us came along, he was just in charge of all the sound, and because he would do music compositions and stuff after they stopped using the stock music. And but yeah, then after that, like once we got like an actual someone that was their dedicated role, Rory was the first sound designer.
Nice.
Yeah, it's honestly pretty interesting how, by a technicality, there wasn't a dedicated music composer for the game until you came along, Norrie. Because by a technicality, Chris was basically in every role imaginable.
Yeah.
Artist, I think he helped with some programming, music, a couple of story directions really early on. So he was never specifically a composer. And Rory O'Neill, while he did make a couple of tracks, he was never in the specifically composer position. And the only other person involved was Friction Music, which was a contractor unrelated to the company.
Yeah.
And speaking of like your early roles back in like 2009, I think you mentioned in your LinkedIn. Do you remember anything specific you made audio wise before you started making music at all?
Before I started making music, good question. I mean, that's a long time ago now, and I'm at the point now where it's like I remember the highlights, but I don't remember all the details necessarily.
Sure.
I mean, nothing that was really notable. Like I dabbled with really basic stuff. I had, like I said, I had access to Pro Tools pretty early on, so I was able to kind of, make stuff more for fun. And like I had written my own music and stuff, and released that. And again, producing it and engineering it all myself. But yeah, nothing major for sound design. I had a basic understanding of sound design, and because I was so excited about being involved in one way or another, I really kind of went into hyper focus on that, and learning, and around that time frame, just trying to wrap my head around sort of the nuances of it. But I mean, it's crazy even thinking about those times now, like where I am today, and what the kind of sound design I do now back to back then. It's almost kind of embarrassing, but
I know we find it really fascinating to go through the history, and I
Yeah.
mean, like I personally know from the stuff I've heard is it's super high quality stuff. So I think you can be very proud of the stuff.
Yeah,
Thank
you've
you.
done.
Yeah, I respect a lot of your work, especially considering how I think the only other you were one of the one of the first composers who specifically went out of his way to have like live performances in a lot of songs.
Yeah, I really wanted to utilize, like I had this tiny little studio. We had two of them in the Club Penguin offices, and they're identical studios, and mine was just filled with instruments. Like my brass instruments, guitars. I was recording my guitar amp at the time, so I wasn't even going like, right now sometimes I'll record stuff like just through my pedal board, and then I'll just use an amp sim on the computer. But yeah, like I was miking up my amplifier. It got so hot in there, even with the special air conditioning system. It was like supposed to be 16 degrees Celsius in there, and it was just, I don't even know how hot it got. I should have brought a thermometer in there, but yeah, I just crammed it full of instruments and performed a lot of it live, and a lot of sound effects too. Like I would create those, doing weird stuff like using a bow on my guitar, and my different guitar pedals and stuff, and even utilize those for sound design.
Yeah, I specifically know a lot of sound design stuff from #WaddleOn. Like I think you mentioned that you did a lot of the voices for stuff like It went like statue roommates.
Oh yeah. Yeah, some of those stingers.
That's you.
Yeah.
Just wanted to know.
That's funny. I literally just saw someone in the community drew fan art of the two statues. Like it's still something
Oh
that
yeah.
gets remembered. It's a fun little bit.
Yeah, I love that series. I mostly that was one of the projects I pretty much did from the ground up for sound design, like, and for all of the audio. So I'd also do the sound design for those sketch series. That's a fun fact. Even after I was just the music composer, but yeah, those are super fun, and the writing was just perfect. It was just like, it was so niche if you're anywhere else in the world, but for the Club Penguin audience, like those guys did such a great job.
Yeah, honestly, it's so ridiculously specific, and I respect it for that, because it never really came off as like trying too hard to be hip or something. It was just in its own bubble.
Yeah, it was a fun watch for sure. I remember those coming out, back when I was in middle school, high school. So
yeah,
super fun to look back on.
Yeah.
I was kind of curious to touch more on kind of how your early days, specifically when you joined in the support role. I was curious how familiar you were with the game itself. Like, I mean, I knew you knew it existed because, like, in your community, people were working there that you were familiar with. But did you have to, like, take a crash course on what this game is, how it works? Did they have, like, a Club Penguin 101 that they had to teach you? Like, I mean, how did that whole thing work?
Yeah, kind of. I hadn't played the game before. So before I set foot in the office, I had not played the game. I can't remember. I think I may have created an account after my interview, like just so I could sort of get a little bit familiar at home before stepping into the role. But yeah, it was basically like, here, someone who is already working there would take you through and do a crash course on the game and sort of the culture and nuances and where all the secrets are and sort of the hidden features and whatever. And yeah, so we have to learn about the game. We'd have to learn about the different aspects of supporting it. Yeah, so it was all sort of part of the training process for the job.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's super interesting. It's as I work in an office culture now, it's like I wonder how that office culture for this huge part of my childhood is like.
Yeah.
And I kind of wanted to touch on that as well. I mean, like, I've heard so many stories about just how the group and the team there was just super amazing. You even kind of mentioned at the start just how it was like a really friendly environment. I mean, like, what's your experience like that? What was the culture like? What was the office like?
It was just really warm and welcoming and safe as well. Like it just yeah, it just felt like, a group of friends were like having fun. It was like I've never really seen anything like it since either.
I always hear that. It sounds really one of a kind.
Yeah, it was just and I mean, even just that specific time frame, like back in before, like I don't know, I want to say like before 2012, 13, or even especially before like 2014, I'll say. It was just like just such a close knit, like I mean, but then the other thing too is a lot of people already knew each other and we we're all sort of from the same place. And so there weren't a lot of people who had come from other areas yet. And then we started to expand globally. And then that's when we started to introduce new faces and people who were joining the team from elsewhere. And then there was that brought a lot more diversity, which I think was really good. But then, you're having to introduce, new people you're not familiar with. And but yeah, like that specific time frame, although it was very, what's the word?
Like exciting or like just
it was just, especially like I came in and then like I think it was the next year like Disney bought the company, and like that time was just insane. Like it was
Tell us
just
about that. That's
it,
super fascinating.
they
Yeah,
like so they were the owners, Lane, Lance, and Dave were in conversations with a number of major parties interested in buying the game. And but they really wanted to preserve the culture of the game and also the culture of the studio, which I think they believed and I believe was really what made it so successful was like we want to create something good and we want to create a good environment and have a positive impact, and not just like it's not simply about, you know, how much money can we make, like how much can we charge. Like it was about like how do we build something that's sustainable. Like it's still business, it has to earn money to sustain and then also grow and expand and create new features, of course, but like the heart, it still needed the heart. And I think a lot of corporations like do strip that away. And so with this with the Disney acquisition, like they were really on the same page, and they kind of came in a bit later. And I think after some offers were turned down as well, like major offers, and then Disney comes in and they're like totally in alignment and in agreement with everything that the owners wanted for the company moving forward. So yeah, like it, and then yeah, Disney, like they all came to like do tours of the studio and stuff, and like Bob Iger came and was like checking out, you know, our customer service area and all this like the production team and everything. Like it was just
I've heard they used the customer service team there as an example for other like branches of Disney, of like, this is what you guys should strive to be like.
Yeah,
I actually didn't remember that. I just mostly remember like seeing stuff on the purchase, because there were a lot of studios. Only other one that was publicly known was Sony, but there were a lot of others, right?
Yeah, I don't know how many, but I know there were a number of studios that were hoping to you know, to partner with, or depending on yeah. So
I know Sony was
the biggest. The biggest, you know, second one. But yeah, I know they turned down that offer. There were just some things that were not lining up with their vision for moving forward. So
it's always interesting for me to think about like what the game would have been like if it went the Sony route with like Surf's Up and all that.
People always say maybe it could have lasted 20 more years or 20 less years. Who really knows?
Yeah. It's definitely an interesting thing to ponder. Would you say that the like super welcoming environment was one of your favorite parts about working there? Or were there any like specific things, maybe like perks to the job? I mean, did you guys have like a food truck that came by? I don't know. Like what was your kind of favorite thing about working there, or one of your favorites?
I think just generally the culture and like the heart of the team and also like the online community. Like it was just ingrained in what Club Penguin was. Like there was just this super upbeat, positive environment that that just like it ran through every aspect of working there, and you saw it through the community as well. So yeah.
Can I ask, did you have any least favorite stuff? Any like really stressful stuff? I know you kind of mentioned like maybe there was like a change in the culture around 2014, which I've heard a little bit about that. And
yeah, I think over time, like Disney is still a huge corporation, and I think over time, like some of the initial sort of I don't know, like the original sort of heart of the company, of this, the small Club Penguin company, like that sort of started to wear off over time. And it definitely created more of a corporate working environment and culture that I don't know that the Club Penguin studio or community necessarily benefit from in a lot of ways. I think there are huge benefits. Again, like if we hadn't have partnered with Disney, like who knows how things would have worked out. Like I think Disney offered a ton of opportunity, especially for global expansion, and being able to support different languages and just having customer support all
Speaking as somebody from
24/7.
South America, I do appreciate it.
Yeah. Yeah, I know, like that, and that was one of the main focuses too, because there's so much demand. There's such an audience in South America, so
Yeah.
I think I
Can
forget.
I tell you a funny story about that?
Yeah,
Around 2019, I still saw kids in my school sometimes play with Card-Jitsu cards, and those were not manufactured since 2013, which
Yeah.
goes to show that it really had a big audience here.
yeah,
Got my Card-Jitsu
Nice.
cards right here.
that's awesome.
These were good times.
Yeah, I don't have any swag from Club Penguin, but this was my. I'm still using the same mug I used when I worked there.
I noticed that cup. I really did.
I think I saw that once in Disney World.
I think you can still buy this at Disneyland. I think I've seen it. No, I think as of a few years ago, like I was at Disneyland in 2022. I'm pretty sure I saw this mug. So.
I would believe it. I mean, their merchandising is intense.
Yeah.
And, I mean, hey, that was another thing that they did super well with Club Penguin.
Well, and actually, we they wanted to go ham on merchandising. I remember, and our tiny little, I think one man, or there might have been two people merchandising team for Club Penguin was like, hold on, we're not just gonna go and do a bunch of cheap stuff. Like we want to do it right, and have great quality merchandise. We don't just want to throw it, vomit it all over the place with stuff that's going to be, left on the side of the curb.
Yeah.
And so that was another cool thing. Again, like, maintaining that high level of quality and like throughout every aspect of the company.
Yeah, I think they totally achieved that. I mean, like I'll even just talk with friends and even coworkers who remember playing the game, and they talk about the toys.
I remember a friend had a Puffle beanbag, like one of those huge ones on the floor.
Yeah.
Didn't The Office have like a room full of those?
Yeah, we had a few beanbag areas, like just kind of casual, like hang out on your break areas, or like just collaborative spaces. Sometimes people would just chat through things, and
that's the space I need. Like forget Starbucks, it's this room that looks like the migrator, and it was like filled with all those bean bags, and I was always so jealous. I was like, this looks so cool.
Yeah. Yeah, we had like a theater room with like this fake vending machine.
Yeah, with all the like custom candy logos, like O. Hendrix and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I was always super jealous of that too. Although I'm assuming that was there even real candy in those? Do you remember? Know?
There was not.
Did you guys like watch movies in that room? I mean, like you had meetings and stuff, I think, right?
Yeah, a lot of times we'd have meetings. Like sometimes we'd record stuff in there. One time we recorded we got a bunch of people to do some clapping for music. So again, like live recording, like there's a couple songs that have like these claps, and it's like a crowd clap. That's real.
I can name at least two of them on top of my head, which were the Happy Song or Town Theme. And I think me and my Puffle, though I might be wrong on that one.
Yeah. Yeah, we got a bunch of people in there, and that's not layered. Need
to know those were live recordings. I didn't know if they were just sampled or live recorded.
Yeah,
it seems like a lot of those were like there were a lot of like small little cheers and claps. So those were mostly live.
Yeah, those were not. Those claps were also not layered. Like that was like a bunch of people in that like theater room that we recorded with along to the beat of the music. So it was not even individual claps, like they're clapping along to the actual beat of the song, and all those cheers and stuff, and like a lot of there were like in some of the songs there were like different sounds, like pirate sounds and stuff, and like for the sports party, there's a bunch of stuff that was all real. That was not.
Are you familiar with the Twins?
Yeah.
Did they do any of the pirate sounds? Because I always felt like that sounded like them.
Actually, I did ask him this before. Yes, they did.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Also, Toby Holes.
Yeah.
That's fun.
Yeah, no, those guys were hilarious. Are hilarious.
Yeah. Yeah, they still we still see them around, you know. They're working on stuff that has that same personality, and it's fun to
Yeah.
just see their sense of
Yeah.
humor injected into everything they do. I love it.
Yeah.
There's even I mean, Blue might remember. What is it called? Is it Coffee Jam Beats? There's like a music video inside the office for like a music jam once.
Oh yeah, that was like in 2011, I think, where basically it was just a mix maestro, which was which was like mixed together with a bunch of sounds just recorded from the office. That was probably done by Rory, considering the time frame.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was cool.
Yeah, I was curious if you knew about that at all, Norrie, if you had any part in that, but I don't know.
I can't remember. I feel like I might have been involved in that. I know I was around during that time. I don't think I was that. I think I might have been involved in that, but I don't want to. I don't want to take owner. I'm just trying to think through. But I remember Johnny was going around because he's also very talented. Like
Is that Business Moose?
Yeah.
Cool.
Cool.
Yeah, like they for a social media team, like they were great audiophiles too, and they would kind of do stuff like even just edit the camera takes with the sound, and then just kind of do it on their own. So, but yeah,
Yeah,
that's pretty neat. I didn't know they were involved with any sort of sound thing.
Yeah, they're but especially like Chris Glidden was very much is very much an audiophile, and like had very really good ear for stuff. And I definitely have to credit him for giving direction on certain things, especially my early times when I was kind of just doing music for the social team. But yeah. They were a great duo until that team grew. Yeah.
They're still doing stuff together, making parrots and moose games, and it's all sorts of fun stuff.
Speaking of Moose and Polo, can I ask a quick question about one specific song? Do you remember anything about the Moose and Polo show that was canceled? Because we managed to find the original theme, but we don't know anything outside of that. It was later reworked into #WaddleOn, and you made the main theme for it, but it went unused.
The Moose and Polo show. I'm wondering.
It never came out, so it might not ring a bell.
Yeah, no, I remember that. I'm just trying to think of. I think we had a guy come in on contract just for capacity's sake, and I'm wondering if that's what I think he might have worked on that theme song.
I think you based on our information and how it sounds in general, I'm 99% sure you did. I can maybe link it to you at some point, but yeah, I can understand sometimes some composition credits can get messed up. Like for example, when Chris accidentally got confused with one song Friction made because it sounded really similar to his style.
Right.
Yeah, there's a lot of music to keep track of. I kind of wondered how well you remember it all. Like I'm sure a lot of it can sift through the cracks.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's some stuff I'll listen to that is like cataloged, so I know that I did it, and I'm like, I did that. And it's like, oh yeah, it's coming back to me now. I can kind of remember what instruments I was using. It's like, I mean, I did lots of live stuff, but I still used virtual instruments too. So just remembering, kind of taking myself back through that creative process again. But yeah, there's so much music.
I think I have a small number. I think it was around 182 confirmed compositions, or somewhere around that range.
Yeah.
So especially impressive considering you were only full-time for 3 years.
Yeah, it was. Well, I mean, that was my most prolific role was was composing music. So it was
it was a big deal.
Yeah, it was a lot of just spent a lot of time working on that, and I'm I was really lucky to be able to do that too, because like I don't know, a lot of times music is really like it's really tough. It's like almost just the background, and people don't really want to pay money for the background. They just want to pay for what's up front in your face. So it can be a really hard business case to get original music in there. And a lot of the music across all platforms that ends up getting used is, it's still amazing compositions, but it's royalty free music, and so it just gets used in multiple places, and it's not original.
Yeah. Funny thing about that, I remember that Chris specifically stated one of the reasons they moved away from it is because they were getting tired of getting constant emails about, oh my God, somebody stole your song from Club Penguin.
Yeah.
Honestly, technically, which still happens to this day.
Yeah.
The few songs they used.
Yeah. Well, that's the other thing too, is like when you're that size, you can't really afford to not have original music, because that's exactly what's going to happen. And I think I think there's a time for royalty free music, and I think once you grow to a certain size, then it's like, okay, we got to move on. Like, we got to do our own thing, just for the integrity of your own brand too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the music, I mean, like, it was so strong. I mean, you show these songs to people that used to play it, and you can just see their face light up. It's like, oh my gosh. So like,
yeah. Honestly,
I totally remember this.
Sometimes I honestly feel a little bad for all the artists, because most of the music was in really, really bad quality, like mono 96. I don't know the exact measure, but really low quality MP3s.
Yeah, I forget how low they had it originally, but I know
they had it.
It was like
insanely low in the really early days. Like,
yeah.
I'm talking 14 kbps on like, I don't know the exact measures, but really terrible.
Yeah. I think by the end we had upgraded it to at least 96, maybe 128.
Yeah, around there, but it was still all mono. So honestly, it was a pretty interesting experience listening to a lot of the high quality stuff for the first time. Kind of wish there was some official soundtrack release at some point. There was only one album that you had one song in, Dubstep Puffle.
Yeah.
Best lyrics of any song, by the way.
Was it ever a bummer to like have this music that you put so much work into, and then you hear it get kind of compressed, and you're like, oh, shoot, I wish people didn't have to hear it that way? Or did that not bother you?
Oh yeah, it definitely did, because I'm working hard to like make things sound big and full, and I'm panning things, and then anything should sound, a good composition should sound half decent if it's compressed down to mono and compressed to a lower bit rate, but yeah, it was still definitely sad to hear it in that form, and it was one of the reasons we pushed for like, why do we have the music compressed so much? Like, how much bandwidth do we have to increase the size of the music?
Honestly, it was. I always felt like they kind of pushed it after the early days. I still feel like it was kind of low quality for like around 2013, considering the internet speeds were definitely a lot better than in 2006.
Yeah.
Kind of talking about making the music and stuff like that. I don't know if that was a factor, like being aware that it was going to be compressed, but I was curious what your process for making these songs were. Like, I mean, like, how did you brainstorm them? Like, how did you prepare? Just kind of your basic rundown.
Like, did they just give you a couple of like notes about the party, or did they give you like a specific direction, or was it like just make something that fits and not much more?
It really would depend on who specifically I was working with. So, there are a number of different teams. So I'd sometimes be working with the social team. Sometimes I'd be working with the marketing team. Other times I'd be working with the production team. So different characters on all those teams. And a lot of times, certain people would be just like you said, like just make something that works, and other times that would have very very specific uh, you know direction, and sometimes they would also say, hey, we think this vibe, like they'd show something that they feel like it vibes really well with what they're doing, and they want something that is in that same vein, but then of course we can't copy it. So that's also a whole nother story, is creating these like sound alikes that don't get us copyright flagged.
Is there any specific example you could think of?
Oh, Herbert style.
Oh, yeah. How did I not think of that? That was like the most obvious one. That's kind of,
Or the puffle shake.
Oh yeah, that one was fun fact, was actually unused for whatever reason, and in the actual video it just used "Gotta Have a Wingman" for, but the actual song was never used.
Okay.
I don't know why, but random fact, fun fact.
Yeah. But yeah, so sometimes we'd actually work with, like, Disney has like this musicologist that would work with us and the legal team and make sure that we're staying on track and not creating something that sounds too similar. And yeah, for other things, it would be like, what kind of emotions are you looking for this party or this room or this video or whatever it is, and kind of get some specifics on that, and then kind of take those notes and apply those to, or like, what kind of instruments do you want to use? Like what sounds you want? Like Halloween party, we're probably going to use like an organ and as a starting point, and then build up from there. Like create some basic music from that, and then bring in other instrumentation. And pirates are going to be like, probably start with an accordion for some of the music, and yeah, so sometimes there would be that kind of direction, and I would just kind of run with what I had and use that as my sort of creative building foundation.
What about, as we're talking about that, and this is something I said that I'm very interested in the lore, and I'm talking like the storyline of the game. I'm hyper obsessed with just figuring out like all the little story details.
Yeah.
Did the writers ever get in touch with you? And like, for example, they had, if you remember, Gary had a great uncle, Gary Wald, and he had this big mansion, right? He did music for that. They had like the prehistoric, and the prehistoric parties talking about like the old eras of the island. They had these like frost bites during the 2012 party. It's like these icy penguins, even like the Puffle Wilds. It's like this mysterious wilderness.
Yeah.
Those all had like story involved. Did the writers ever tell you like, we need this song to fit this story beat? Or did they just say, hey, make a Haunted Mansion song? I know it's kind of specific, but I had
I worked closely with one of the writers in particular on a lot of things.
Do you remember what their name was? I'm curious if we
Deanna.
Yeah. I've actually been wanting to talk to her next.
Okay. No, she was really great about conveying and articulating the story. And that would kind of give me a creative vision for how I'd apply that to the music and create music that emotes that, what she's going for in the writing. So I'd probably worked with her the most closely out of any of the writers, and
cool.
Therefore kind of got the most of that sort of vision for the story from her. But of course, like as we're having our meetings throughout the production, is early stages of production, with everyone, like I'm talking to different artists and writers and gleaning as much as I can.
There's one question I had about a specific artist that you worked with, Christopher Painter. If you remember him, I know that he was a writer for #WaddleOn, and I wanted to ask something about two specific songs that you made for it. Penguin Carols and Someone to Like Me, if you remember those. I wanted to know, for those songs, were you ever involved with the lyrics, or was Christopher Painter the only lyricist? And also, was Toby Hulse involved in those two? Because I think he was.
For them, like Christopher Painter, like did 99.9% of the work on those. Like to the point where I don't think we could take any credit whatsoever. But there were times where a melody would require like a slight change in wording, in order to kind of fit, in order for the line to fit in the song. So it would still, if anything, like you could maybe credit us as as like the composer and like, or composers, for like maybe 5 or 6 like word edits. But yeah, Christopher Painter did all the writing for those.
Okay, so you did like the music itself, while Christopher Painter was the lyricist for basically everything there.
Yeah, like we would essentially get almost like a poem basically, and turn it into music.
That's neat.
Yeah, because and same with what was it? The Unicorn Puffle.
Oh, I think Awesome to Be Rare.
Awesome to Be
That one
Rare.
was
Yeah,
That ties
written by
into the-
Deanna, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was written by Deanna, and yeah, it was just like a bunch of just words. We weren't like in a songwriting session together. Like it was just like here are the lyrics, now make it a song.
Cool.
And I think like as the production of it goes on, and we're like, oh, we like the direction of this music, then as edits are made or additions are made, then the writer, in this case Deanna, is probably thinking like humming the tune as she's going along. But yeah, it was weirdly a very separate process.
Huh. That's kind of interesting. One more thing about that. I just like knowing all the specifics about this kind of thing, and I know that specifically for Someone to Like Me, was Toby Hulse involved in that? Was it like a co-composition, or was he not involved outside of at all in there?
I would probably categorize his involvement as producer, over it, and because I did the composition, pretty much start to finish. I think like I'm trying to think, like there were a couple songs over the years that he added like a little bit of guitar or some vocals in some cases.
I know about the vocals, but I don't really know about the specific about the guitar ones. Do you remember anything specific?
Not off the top of my head. I think
like, just give me maybe just tell me like what the theme of it was, and I could probably intuit it out.
Yeah, I think there might have been something from one of those videos is what I'm thinking.
Oh, Adopt a Puffle, maybe?
It would have been like rock guitar. Like distorted rock guitar.
I'm trying to the Waterlon scene?
No.
That one was just you, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it might have just been one song. I just can't think of it right now. I remember it was like, it would have been like a lead guitar lick, I think, but I can't think of which one. Because I did a bunch of those, and
yeah, I know
those are
you
mostly
also performed.
Yeah, but yeah, like for Someone to Like Me, I'm pretty sure that was all me. For the music, and then he like essentially kind of took on a bit of a producer role. Those songs, there was so much, they were so labor intensive, and there is so much like diversity in the composition and a diversity of instrumentation that it was really helpful to have him to like kind of step in and offer just production, an objective perspective on it, because I was just in the weeds with those.
I can imagine.
Like it's hard to get outside of your own head.
Yeah, considering Penguin Carols and Someone to Like Me were like released 2 weeks apart from each other.
Yeah.
And for Penguin Carols, I think based on the info we have, it was where Toby wrote some segments while you wrote some others. But I'm not sure if that's true or not, because it was like multiple segment song.
You know what? I can probably just pull it up right now and give you an answer. Yeah, I think he did like the penguin carols, like the sort of
like the more grand part, let's
Yeah.
say. While you did say the more comedic segments,
yeah,
I
yeah,
think
like
that was it.
the heavy rock one and like the
Hip
the
hop.
rapping section and yeah.
Yeah, I admittedly have a lot of notes on specific compositions.
Yeah,
So
you
I
could
might
ask like the
honestly
other
just get them all
questions
out of
about.
the way now.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Like there's three categories. I already told you about like the collaborative works with lyrics and like big just big projects. Then there's the other ones which are I don't know what to call it outside of the Whistle trilogy. The Happy Song, Bullseye, and Me and My Puffle. Those were like entirely done by you, but Toby provided the whistling and vocals, if basically.
Yeah. Toby's got a knack for whistling. I cannot at all. So any whistling is
I can't either. Yeah, I just mainly remember I originally found out about that because Toby made a composition that had like a very similar performance for Club Penguin Island, and that reminded me of these works. So basically, he wrote the entire melody for the whistling and then added on top of your pre-existing song, or was it like both of you working together to make it?
So I had kind of written the song and he added the whistling, and then I think I'm almost certain that I would have once I got the whistling back from him that I would have gone back and like, you know, kind of made it fit in the song even better.
Just edited a bit.
Yeah, I'm sure there's some instrumentation things that I would have tweaked after he recorded the whistling, but he was doing it having, you know, basically a mostly fleshed out composition for me already.
Okay. And there's there's a few others, but there's Adopt a Puffle. This one's just the specific commercial where it's to Adopt a Puffle, Adopt a Puffle. I'm pretty. Was that just done by you, or was it you and somebody else? Like in terms of writing and vocals.
I'm heading back to YouTube right now.
Blue's got this all in the memory bank. This is all.
I can honestly whistle everything from. I cannot whistle, like I can hum everything from the first second. Right. Adopt the puffle. Adopt the puffle.
So we had some artists in to help with those that singing. I forget who, and I think Toby actually recorded them singing the Adopt a Puffle line. But yeah, that was neither of us. We had I actually don't know who he brought in to record those, but that's how we got that.
Yeah. Yeah, but like in terms of the song itself, did you write that?
Yeah.
Just you.
Yeah.
Okay. Just wanted to know.
Outside of the Adopt a Puffle, yeah, that was all me.
Yeah, and there's one more collaborative song, a very famous one that you worked on. I'm a Mod, if everyone knows. I know you did the composition, and I'm pretty sure that it was the same as the other ones in terms of process, where the writer this time was Alex Newcomb. He wrote the lyrics, and you just worked off of that, basically.
Which song was that again?
Oh, I'm a Mod.
It was like an epic rap battle.
Yeah,
Oh. Oh yeah, that one was super fun. Yeah, that was I didn't do the I also did not record their voices either. But I did do the music for it.
Yeah, so Alex Newcomb was the lyricist for that?
Yeah.
Okay. Also, I forgot to mention this on Penguin Carols, but do you remember any of the vocalists for that, or is that just out of your head now?
I know there was a guy that came in to do like the kind of hype man in the rapping section. I did the rapping.
Oh, you did.
Yeah, it's not my finest moment, but
I'd say it's a good effort.
and then let's see. I know, yeah, obviously Toby was in there as well.
Yeah, he did a lot of vocals.
Yeah, let me just scroll back through. Oh, okay. This the big rock section was Rob Mason Brown.
Yeah, I know I know him. He worked on a couple of things, a couple of ads, and also the main vocalist for "It's Awesome to Be Rare"
Yeah.
or whatever.
He was the lead singer of. They made up this like joke band called, I think it was called Glitter Fist, and they played at all of our company talent shows.
Oh, I know. I saw a video from somebody who worked at the company, showed a little reel of the talent show.
Yeah.
Did you do anything for those? I think I saw you in one.
I think one of my old bands played at the talent show one year.
Your band Nuka, or was it something else?
No, it would have been Oceans Apart.
Oh, Oceans Apart. I haven't actually heard too much of that since I couldn't find much about them online.
I wonder if the videos are still up. There, I just linked it in the chat. That's our YouTube page.
Thanks. Honestly, really like a couple of your works I checked out, especially what was it called? It was the only album from Nuka. It was like open something. Point is, I really like the music there.
Yeah, thank you.
I think especially like your guitar, like in songs like that, and even some Club Penguin songs like Hunter of Love. There's just a very distinct sound to it that sounds weirdly emotional to me.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I really, I really like. Honestly, like some of the, it was easier to do some of the darker things, like write some of the darker music. It was the happier stuff that I really found challenging. For whatever reason.
I find that interesting because I honestly think you make really good like uplifting songs.
Oh, thank you.
I agree.
Like you have a song that's literally officially just called the happy song. So that's something about your work.
Yeah, I had definitely had to dig deep for those songs, but you know, I obviously still had them in me. So
that's awesome. I had no idea. You nailed it. Yeah, because like I'll listen to those songs, especially from like your era, and it's like these are just so energizing. I love it.
Yeah, honestly, especially songs like the happy song, I straight up want to clap along at some points.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, honestly, did help with the whole live recording thing. Can I just ask one super tiny thing? Sorry if I've gone on a bit long. There's just a lot of stuff I know.
Yeah.
Do you remember the song Banjo Bonanza? Do you remember if that song was meant for Puffle Roundup? Like, do you remember making anything for the Puffle Roundup minigame?
Yeah.
Or was
I think that might have been its intended purpose.
Yeah, I know because basically I found it unused in the files for the app version of the minigame, and that song just ended up being on one of the just released as Igloo Music because it was like in the backlog of a lot of other stuff.
Yeah, I think that's what happened. Is it was shelved just because producers preferred the I think that it was like a
stock song. Renewed, or I think what's the name?
Yeah.
This reminded me. Was there like I know that one interesting thing I find it is that you made a couple of replacements for a couple of pre-existing stock songs, but after a while they kind of stopped and even reverted one of them due to fan demand. Do you remember anything about the process of two specific songs? It was Eraser or Nightclub Demo, as it was listed on your site, and A Little Jazz, which was a remix of Pizza Trans 3000.
Yeah. I think so basically I was tasked with doing a similar vibe, but just kind of removing the old stock songs, which honestly, like thinking back now, was I yeah. So basically that was the attempt, was to create something to replace those. But yeah, now it's like, well, those songs ultimately I feel like had more charm and also had more connection to the community as the originals. So it felt kind of weird to be trying to replace them. And then also
That's
like
interesting to hear you
going
say.
into the workflow of it too, was challenging, because it's like, hey, there's a lot of pressure, because especially when something's like not my go-to style, it really, like I said before, like I really have to dig deep for some of these styles of music. It's just like not my forte in composition. And then so yeah, it was definitely an interesting challenge. But I know, like the Puffle Roundup one, for example, they just said, you know what, the original, let's just keep it, which ultimately I agree with. Just because, yeah, they just had this kind of charm to them that,
I think it's mostly just that they were way too established for way too long to change
Yeah.
at that point.
Yeah.
Though I do really like a lot of your attempts, especially a little jazz. That also segues into the other side of the composition. But the thing I was talking about is that the pizza parlor scene, Charlie's Here, outside of having a weirdly long history on the publishing thing, but that's completely unrelated. But point is, the songs actually was so popular to the point where Disney actually bought the publishing rights for it at one point. That's kind of interesting.
yeah.
I don't know if they did that for any other song. We just know from some internal stuff. But yeah, that was cool. Honestly, I still really like the take you did. But yes, I was
Thank you.
getting the song was a remix of a pre-existing composition, and I wanted to ask: was there like any specific rules regarding like remixing other composers' works? Because one thing I find interesting about Club Penguin's Holo SG is that there's very, very few songs that are arrangements of other composers' work. Like, I mean, for example, like you remixing work from Chris Hendricks, or one of the rare cases where, say, David Fairfield remixed some of your work. Those were very few and far between. Was that just because they never asked you specifically, or was there like some indirect guideline?
I think just the assumption for me anyway was just like, I'm here to make original music, and so unless there's a specific directive to redo something, I would, just go out on my own and do my own completely from scratch composition. So I don't think there was ever and then I mean there were a couple. There's one theme song in particular.
EPF theme?
Yeah, the EPF theme that got revisited a few times. I think because it was such an iconic
Yeah, that one was
melody.
by far the most reused one, all the way
Yeah.
until Club Penguin Island. It was also used.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which is hilarious because it's also a James Bond thing too. Like it's it's like all the James Bond music over the years is like stylized in a certain way, and kind of utilizing some of the same hooks. And so we did the same without even thinking about it. We did the same thing for the EPF.
The specific thing about the EPF was that the first remix you made of something like that was Operation Blackout. And I remember I wanted to ask, did you specifically take Chris's like Elite Penguin Force the command room theme for reference on that, or did you go all the way back to the origin? Because I don't know if you know this, but the command room is actually a remix of the Nintendo DS game Elite Penguin's Forces theme. So technically, that's a composition by Bart Rogiman. And technically, we aren't sure on this because this was way too long ago for Bart himself to remember. We asked, but there was a song by Friction Music that used a pre-existing loop by GarageBand, which sounds strikingly similar to the EPS theme. However, we can't confirm due to memory, but there's technically a chance that this melody that you remixed was actually a remix of a remix of a song of a remix that was that was using a pre-existing loop made by somebody else, completely unrelated to everything.
Yeah, I suppose that's totally possible. I basically went back. I went as far back as Chris Hendricks' composition, or I guess possible remix, and that's kind of as far back as I tracked on that.
That's what I thought, since that doesn't seem to be very well known, and I don't. So you thought that was actually done by Chris, like the composition, or?
Yeah. I assume that Chris was the one responsible for that original composition, but I guess like you're saying, it was the DS game.
The Elite Penguin Force, and Chris took inspiration from that. So it's always neat seeing a melody evolve from like 3 to 4 different artists. And you did adapt a lot, quite a few songs. I think the last one was the Extraplanetary Force.
Extraplanetary, yeah, that's right. The space party, space party, and the
extra planet, and with the whole vocoder thing. You make and one more thing about this, I will say, Gear Up is probably one of my favorite songs of the whole game, just because of the guitar riff at the second half. I just like how I always have a fondness for like the weirdly epic songs for. Considering Club Penguin was a pretty simple game. And transitioning to that, I was thinking about the Tusk theme on Card-Jitsu. So you didn't work on too many things for Card-Jitsu, but those were pretty well known. And I wanted to ask, did you go from scratch on that, or did you specifically try to make a similar style to Chris Hendricks' previous work? Because he made a lot of stuff, and it was a very particular style.
Yeah, I think so. That one I didn't try to incorporate like any melodies that he had done before, but I tried to sort of maintain the same energy, the same kind of vibe as the work that he had done previously, because like just again, like it's kind of its own like micro brand inside of Club Penguin. Not even a micro brand, it's like with the card game and everything, it was like its own beast. But I think it, like, I wanted to represent that brand well within Club Penguin, and not just kind of do whatever. So it was definitely I would say inspired, but not like a remix or
it wasn't. Nothing was directly remixed. There is one. This was a suggestion from somebody else, but was the first starting notes of the Snow Dojo theme through Mounted Passes inspired by the original Dojo theme, like the do 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 and through Mounted Passes, I think you can remember what that sounds like.
But it's very
subtle
in the back. Yeah, it's very subtle.
Yeah, I think it was more like working with the same scale, like the same.
It was most likely just a funny coincidence.
Yeah.
Funny thing is that technically the first Card-Jitsu theme was also made by Bart, since the original Dojo theme was also a remix of it.
Oh, okay.
Done by Chris. And there's one more thing about that was suggested by somebody else, where, well, technically two, but the Pirate Party theme, because you made a lot of like for the Pirate Party in 2014.
Yep.
Are any of the songs based on the motif for Ocean Voyage, which was another song by Chris? It wasn't like one of the oldest ones he made.
Yeah, I know that one.
Oh, good.
Yeah, no, again, like sort of the pirate sea voyage, like, you know, doing sea shanty style music before it was popularized on TikTok. No, it was just kind of more of a sort of style of music as I saw it.
Yeah.
So like kind of, yeah, but of such a specific style of music that it's easy to like bridge the gap between two totally different songs. So I know, to as a short answer, no. But yeah, that you know what, there may have been some sidebar songs. Like I know there are the different.
Yeah, the last thing was that, like, is there any example where you implemented something like that, like a subtle motif from somebody else, or even your or a previous song you made? That wasn't just like a direct remix of something.
A lot of times that would come in the form of, it would be for like the same party, and I would do like the shopping mall theme of
That
like,
one was a remix of Starting Fresh.
yeah. So and then there's the 8-bit version, there's the shopping mall version. So that was like a direct, yeah, like
Yeah.
taking that exact same song and making it
Yeah,
something different.
like those ones are pretty direct.
Yeah. And then I think it was the pirate party. There was like the mermaid lagoon that had,
Coral Waters.
yeah, it was using the same melodic theme as the sort of main pirate party theme song.
Yeah, I remember that like the same suggestions mentioned that he thinks that like all the themes have that kind of thing where like all the songs in that party do the same thing, where they kind of copy off the main melody but in a very subtle way.
Yeah. Yeah, and sometimes there'd be like a B melody, or like a B song that would kind of get used and sprinkled in other areas, and other times it would just be like I would take that sort of theme and apply it to different areas. Because also, like, for some of these parties, like you said, like there was up to like 7 songs.
Yeah,
A lot of times that it wasn't usually that many, but for, you know, there was at least like 3 or 4.
it was honestly pretty interesting because I found it interesting because usually a lot less rooms got decorated, since they tended to go way more in on the detail in the later years, like entirely redesigning rooms, having a lot more party rooms. Yeah,
Yeah.
there were a lot more songs. There were usually only like at most 3. Well, with the exception of something like the music jam, which makes sense.
Yeah.
But it went from like 4 to 6. Here's a random piece of trivia. The 2 parties with the most songs like added, made specifically for them, that aren't reused or stock, were the Music Jam 2008 and the Muppets World Tour. And interestingly enough, both of those parties also were the only parties that had 3 artists on them. I know too much.
Did you have any other specific song questions, Blue?
Let me just double check super quickly in case I Oh yeah, here's one I found kind of interesting. How was the process for the Club Penguin mashup songs? You made 2 of them, and that's basically like just mixing a ton of stems from a ton of songs. It must be kind of interesting.
Yeah. So I had access to various amount, like obviously the stuff I did, I had complete access to like all the instrumentation and stuff, but for some of the stuff that was done by Disney Records, I had stems that I was not able to manipulate as much. So a lot of times, like I would have to start there and then work my own stuff into them, because I could manipulate my stuff a lot more easily. But yeah, it was basically like, what are the highlights from the past year, and then yeah, like what, and then all the accompanying music, and try and incorporate as much as I can throughout the whole thing, and make note of what's landing in all those areas throughout the song, and just playing around with what works. And it can get tedious, especially once you kind of go down a rabbit hole. Yeah, because like I would go down a rabbit hole and be like, I'm not really loving that, and then I'll have a different idea, and I'll have to like pull a bunch of stuff apart and like kind of redo a whole section, and but you know, it was a fun process. It actually, because I got to just edit music instead of come up with music, which is honestly a nice break sometimes to not have to like, because like my job was I obviously create the music, I have to make it fit, and sometimes you just want to like have that music already just ready to go. And I've done a few like short films where it's just like royalty-free music. It's super low budget, and all I have to do is edit the music, and it's honestly kind of fun to just do that once in a while.
Yeah, I get that. You know, and the whole Disney Records thing also reminded me of a thing where, I know that. Did you know anything like? Were you ever in contact with specifically Michelle Lewis and Dan Petty? Because I know you remixed at least two of their songs for once in the Party Starts Now karaoke, haha, get it, and the Cool in the Lounge for the Merry Walrus parties, which were remixes of their songs, and they were working around the same time on a lot of vocal songs. But I know they were from America, so I don't know if you like had zero contact with them, or maybe they provided feedback on a remix or something.
No, we were allowed to do the remixes without any issue. So we didn't have to like get permission for those because they're already like, I guess however the contracts were done for those, like they were just in the Club Penguin brand, and we owned the rights to be able to do that. So we worked in parallel, separate from them. They kind of were given their task of doing those songs. Whatever they worked on, they kind of did their own thing under the Disney Records umbrella. And then I'm sure like some of the higher up producers for Club Penguin like would have had a lot of say in the direction of those, but I never worked with them at all, or actually didn't even have contact with them at all.
So for the remixes, you were just basically told to just remix the song and then no real specific notes outside of just remixing the song itself.
Yeah, it was more about like the production of the song. Like Cool in the Lounge, for example, is like
making it the same style as the starting fresh lounge.
Those were pretty easy tasks, and I think everybody was easily on the same page right from the get-go with what it should turn out as. So there was no really back and forth on any of that within our own team. And we just did that independently.
That's interesting because I think Michelle Lewis and Dan Petty are actually like the only like composers directly for the main game, and not some spin-off that were not from Canada, interestingly enough. And for the specifically the Party Starts Now karaoke one, did you do the vocals for that one? The
Monsters.
Like the Monsters University one. It was like the room where there were a bunch of. Honestly, I think you should just look. It's kind of hard to describe.
Well, it's got like monster growls in it. I think that's what you're asking about, right?
Yeah.
If you did the growls.
Yeah.
I think this is probably Toby.
That's pretty neat. I just always like the ones with random vocals placed into them. Like I think there was another one that was pretty, which I'm pretty sure was done with the process you mentioned a while back, with the whole like everybody at the studio clapping with All Together Now, which I'm 99. The school theme, which I'm 99% sure the name was supposed to be a High School Musical reference.
Oh, okay.
I just feel like a school theme All Together Now. It just makes me think of We're All in This Together or something.
Yeah. I would not be surprised. I don't recall, but I mean, there.
Sorry for a second. Before I forget, this is a really specific thing I just like to know. Uh, how does the naming process go? Do you name them? Because I know Chris specifically mentioned that he basically never named anything. That was just up to the team after he sent it. Sometimes they use his name, sometimes they use something different. But I know since you were in a slightly different, like more direct role on composition, was that different, or was it just a toss in the hat where they used whatever name you put it or not?
I relied on the writers to name stuff because I'm horrible at naming everything. So that's not my forte. So because they were able to, I fully counted on them to name the tracks. My working titles were like, if I was working on multiple songs for like
just
the Pirate Party,
1.
it would be like Pirate Party main theme, Pirate Party like I don't know, Mermaid Cove or whatever. Like it would just be like, very basic functional names.
What about the happy song? I mean, was that?
Pretty sure that one was just called the town theme.
Okay. I think the happy song was like the town theme.
I guess that was just done by writers. Funny thing is that Chris Hendricks mentioned basically the exact same process where he just named everything just really basic, like medieval town, medieval forest. I find it interesting that you never worked on a medieval party outside of, I guess, the hashtag Waddle On jingles. So I guess the Fair 2015 had medieval songs.
Yeah, no, I somehow didn't end up doing anything for that. I'm trying to think of if there's like a one-off, but I don't think so. Like Chris did such solid work on those.
I know why. It was because there was only one medieval party, and during your time, there was only one, and that one was done by David Fairfield as he was looking for some work at the time, and he did a couple of things for one or two parties.
Yeah.
So all you did was a specific medieval themed jingles for hashtag Waddle On, and technically you did medieval songs for the Fair 2015. Which honestly I really like. Specifically, the rhythm takes ye.
Okay.
And what was the last song you made for the game? Not last song used. We can just check that. Like last song you made before you left the company.
I believe it was for the Wilderness Party.
The Wilderness Expedition.
Did it end up being called that?
Was it the Puffle Wilds or was it the Sasquatch thing? I don't remember.
I think it was the Puffle Wild Party.
I believe so. With glitter pants and I don't know if that was
so. Pretty sure that was in 2014. Based on my information, the last songs you made were for either the Fair 2015 or the Rainbow Puffle Party, which was a mobile only party. And there's also one other one that I'm not sure when it was made, but it was called Helping Hands, which was specifically made for like a corporate introduction video, something like that.
Okay.
Out of those three, which ones do you think you made last?
That's a great question. Let me see if I can try and jog my memory here. I feel like it might have been the Puffle Wild.
I find that interesting because the Puffle Wild songs, those were made in 2014, and if it's specifically the Puffle Party 2015, that was actually quite a bit earlier.
The thing with Puffle Wild is that, I mean, because that was kind of what I want to ask, maybe now, maybe later, but like a lot of it seemed to be delayed, and like it didn't really get fully realized. Like there seemed to be like a lot of canceled content for it or something like that. So like, I don't know, maybe the music was made earlier, possibly. I don't know, because they teased Puffle Wilds during the Operation Puffle in November 2013,
and it took about a year after.
Yeah, right. There's some recent documents that showed it was like being worked on back in 2013 and stuff. So like it could have been an earlier composition.
I'm wondering if it was I wonder if it was for the Rainbow Puffle Party.
I feel like that might be it. because that's the last thing we know of. Well, okay, technically not. The thing about it is that the last songs before like you officially left, that party was done right at the same time for the Fair 2015 because basically they couldn't get that party to work on mobile, so they made an entirely separate party for mobile that was going on at the same time.
Yeah.
It was just curious about that. Okay, I think I'll leave it off with, do you remember ever getting help on performance outside of like Toby Holtz? Do you ever remember getting anyone else to help you with performance instrument, like not vocals, just general performance on an instrument, on drums, guitar, trumpet, or anything? Or did you just mostly remember doing everything yourself?
The only instrument, so we did the Night of the Living Sled recordings with Chris Hendricks, and that we did that at a piano in a church building somewhere, and recorded all that live while he watched the videos. And then for the only other thing where I had someone perform an instrument was a harmonica on like the Wild West.
I know two songs that use a harmonica: Desert Roads and probably my favorite song you made, Cabin Trails. That one's
those two.
Do you remember who performed the harmonica?
It was Shane Spraggs.
Shane Spraggs. I'll see if I can find them.
He did harmonica on those two songs because I found out he was a very proficient at it. So asked him if he would, and he was happy to. So
that's awesome to hear. I always thought the harmonica part at Cabin Trails was probably my favorite section in any song you made.
Nice.
Really good performance. I tend to also really like your guitars, but I already mentioned that. So I think that'll be all for me, at least. You go, Rybo, for now.
Cool. Let me see what else. Like, so kind of on the specific song questions, can you tell us just about Operation Blackout's music? Because you said that you kind of like music that's a little more dark or moody, right? I mean, that probably leans a lot more into that. How was that experience?
Yeah, it was super cool. Like that was one of the times like I took out my cello bow and used it on my guitar. Actually.
Oh.
So is this
look at that
guitar and this cello bow. So
wow. I didn't even know. I'm not a music expert. I didn't know you could use a bow on like.
I had no idea you could do that
like that.
Yeah.
You play the guitar like that?
Yeah. So basically, like using the bow and just up and down on the strings of the guitar, and it creates this kind of drony sound. And I know for that as well, like to add tension, I used a slide, and I like using a glass slide, and so I would run it up or down the neck while I'm using the bow. So it's just this like sliding up, like tense sound to add into the mix. And lots of like bassy synths and stuff, and kind of like kind of stuttery, like really on the grid synth parts to kind of give it that sort of sound.
I like the contrast of the two themes, where one's like a bit more dark and moody, the main theme, while Gear Up is this much more like epic, ultimate battle for the ages. Along with a really good rock solo. I always loved that part, how it incorporated the EPS theme.
Yeah, definitely took some cues from like superhero music. Like, I don't know if Avengers was out yet, but like that style.
Funny thing, it was Chris actually made music for that party related to that not too long before.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, that music was pretty easy for me to make. There's certain kind of styles that I find are just easier, and that's one of them.
That's awesome, because I know I have some friends I was even just talking to, and they're like, Operation Blackout is my favorite song from him. It's so intense and so awesome. And Blackout's
Yeah.
just this huge event, anyways. It's cool
Yeah.
that it was so easy for you to do. Like that's more your
I find it
style.
really interesting because there aren't a lot of dark and moody songs. The only thing I can really think of is the Halloween Party 2014. I tend to think a lot about the cheery songs. Like one I imagine must have been really hard was one of your earliest songs as a full-time composer, which I think was Smoothie Smash. I find that one interesting because the entire song has like a really cheery. I don't know exactly what guitar it is, but it's a guitar. Do you remember like what guitar that was and like the process of that one?
I'm pretty sure I was using my baritone ukulele for that song. So it's tuned the same as the top 4 strings of a guitar. So the chord shapes are kind of, that's kind of what I'm working with. Baritone ukulele.
That's cool.
On Blackout still, so how did you try to make it? I don't like thematically. I'm thinking try to be like the end of the world kind of sound. Like what was kind of going through your head? Like I'm thinking story wise again.
Yeah.
Right?
Like did you get any specific direction?
Yeah, like did they tell you like this is just Club Penguin is completely doomed and you got to just make it sound super scary? Like
yeah, I think in my head it was kind of like we're in the thick of it. Like, you know, we're in the middle of the story arc and like this is where the action's happening kind of a thing. So there's kind of like, you know, there's full on epic action and then there's sneaky action, like, you know, solving the problem, solving the mystery. So there's, kind of those two veins.
What about, because at the end, I'm looking at this, it says you composed this as well. There was a cutscene that revealed the director.
Oh, yes, Through the Darkness.
Yeah.
Almost like a lot more emotional.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a really great track as well. And like, did you know? I don't know how much you followed the mascot characters and stuff like that. Were you aware that Antarctic was imagined as the director for some time, or did they just come out and tell you, "Hey, she's the director. Make a song revealing it"? Like, that a thing?
It was kind of like a not so secret around the office for a long time. But yeah, and then it was finally like this, but it was still like a huge deal to reveal it. Because it was not something that was ever conveyed to the audience. So
yeah, how was it like? You said it was a big secret in the office. Like, tell me more about that. Like, how long? Like what were people saying? Because I know Chris has talked a little bit about it in a video, like how from the beginning he kind of imagined it could be Antarctic, but he left it open. I didn't realize that was like a lot of people were in on that possibility.
I think like for a lot of different storylines, like there's so many possibilities, and like sometimes the production team would come and, you know, when I first started like in customer service, like, you know, the writers would come and workshop different ideas with us, and like we'd brainstorm all together and like just which is another cool element of being in that office at that time, even just in customer service. But like we would talk about all different kinds of possibilities. Like nothing was ever left completely off the table. And then I think certain things, once the lore was able to be established within a storyline that made sense, then we, you know, it would turn into this big epic reveal. But a lot of times, like, you know, the writers really wanted to make sure that it did all make sense, and we didn't just like come out with something and then it broke a whole bunch of other storylines. So yeah, they
were very good about that. I didn't realize the writers like collaborated with the customer service team. Like they gave you guys some insight and stuff like that.
Did you ever control a mascot?
I'm
not sure if I'm allowed to say, but
I mean, it's up to you.
They've confirmed at this point.
We know, I mean, like that's not like a confidential thing.
We know.
They've all talked about that.
Yeah. I was definitely Rock Hopper.
Cool.
I don't remember if I was any other characters, but yeah, I controlled Rock Hopper. I remember actually like being on different servers, like there are different people on different servers controlling Rockhopper, and it would sometimes create a little bit of conflict and be like, oh, I just saw you on this other server and you said something different.
Oh,
And be like,
that's
oh,
funny.
but yeah, no, that was fun. We had like the lines we the script.
yeah,
to stick
yeah.
to, and then
We have seen a lot of leaks regarding that, like where they have like a couple of preset messages and some guidelines.
yeah,
But next thing you're gonna tell me is that the Merry Walrus isn't real.
the Mary. I actually that
You didn't know about that?
yeah, that goes over my head.
To be honest, Club Penguin itself kind of forgot about it after.
It didn't go very well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a whole thing.
Yeah.
So you knew Antarctic was the director like for some time.
Yeah. Yeah, it was kind of like it wasn't, I wouldn't say it was a joke, but it was like it was a thing internally for a while before that. How long before that? I don't know, because like
Sure.
Again, like
No, I guess it would depend on when they actually decided to make Antarctic the director, because technically she was from the beginning, but the thing was that it was more so just like a potential possibility. It wasn't clear cut at that point. So I wonder when it was clear cut.
Yeah, to be honest, I don't really remember, but I think like it was kind of put in there like subtly for a while. But yeah, you're right. Like from the beginning, it was like, oh, anything's possible.
Right.
Yeah,
that makes sense. It is cool because I like to read all the newspapers, right? And I'll read articles from Antarctic, and I think like,
so crazy
I wonder if the writer knew that she was probably the director at that time, or if they were just spitballing it. They even got to a point where like eventually they were teasing that there was a new director, and it was Rookie. Does that ring a bell? Like, does that even?
I'm pretty sure that was at the Future Party.
Yeah, I know that's like a random question. Does that ring a bell to you, Norrie? Like Rookie becoming the director? Was that talked about as a thing? It's a really niche thing. It might not ring any bells.
Yeah, I feel like that is ringing a bell. I don't remember though. If
that's fine.
Yeah.
There were like tweets, and in the mascot scripts, Gary from the future was saying that like, oh yeah, Rookie became the director, and they like teased it in the newspaper, but then they just kind of dropped it. And
okay,
we've been trying to sift around and find out like, was there like some sort of storyline that they planned?
I guess it depends on what they had in mind for the whole Future.
A question for Deanna.
Yeah. Yeah, one of those loose ends probably.
Yeah. Were you familiar in The Office about like Blackout's backstory, like the conception of the part? Because like it came from a misunderstanding. There was a leak of like a whiteboard, and it was called Operation Blackout. And it meant like, were you a part of that whole spiel and how it came to be?
I remember that happening, and I mean, and then the party came, and it was kind of inspired by that. But I don't know. I don't really remember too much about it other than I think someone took a picture, and then it ended up on an iPad or something, and their kid released it or whatever, and
and they got grounded for the weekend.
Yeah.
They got banned for 72 hours.
Yeah. And then we they went with that theme for the party. I don't really remember a ton of the details other than that.
No, that's cool. I'm curious whatever you know from.
But it was a real thing. That was the whiteboard. That was the real whiteboard with the real.
Yeah, it is funny. I mean, a lot of things happened in history, like the classic it's looking way too hard into ninja shadows, which they later made real.
Yeah. I think that was like part of the thing with like, the like leaving stuff open-ended, because then it sort of create like the audience is kind of building their own lore around things.
Yeah.
Like ninja shadows for something, like making something out of nothing. And so I think that offered the opportunity to really like give the audience something that they wanted, and that they were really desiring, that kind of in some cases came out of nothing, but in some cases it was a storyline left open-ended that imaginations were running wild with. So It just
Yeah, I think that was
Yeah.
one of their strengths for sure. They really did
I
well with
really
that.
leaned into
Yeah.
that.
I was gonna ask if you ever workshopped any songs or ideas with like Card-Jitsu Shadow. Does that ring a bell?
no.
No, that was
No.
a huge myth.
Yeah,
I don't
no.
think that was ever worked on.
I didn't.
It wasn't, but I wasn't sure if they ever said like, "Hey, you have any ideas for like a shadow Card-Jitsu?" So
No,
thought
that
I'd shoot my shot there. That was
yeah, no, that'd be super cool though. I legitimately did not ever hear about that though. I
interesting.
remember when they animated the shadows though. Like that was I do
Yeah.
remember that. But
That was we've been trying to find the files for those. Like
Oh, yeah.
the flash files of them jumping across the buildings and stuff like that because it's such a huge moment. I was
Yeah.
9 years old. I remember like in my living room being like, "Holy crap!
yeah,
Look at this!" Yeah, it was awesome.
I don't remember much. I'll admit I was way too young back then to remember much. It was mostly my brother playing it, but I always remember it specifically Card-Jitsu Fire when it first came out. And
Oh, yeah.
it was just cool seeing all that stuff. Honestly, sometimes I do tend to talk more about the when you were active, since a lot of people don't tend to talk about that time in Club Penguin history. And honestly, one thing I sometimes wish more people knew about the Club Penguin app, especially you made a couple of songs specifically for that, like Sushi Drop, if I remember. Amongst the other apps. I just think the models look neat. That's all.
yeah.
Yeah, that was a fun one. I don't think I even had told you yet, Blue, but I was literally just recently at work talking to somebody who was a little younger than me, and they actually played more during, I'll say, like the Norrie era, the like 2013, 2014, 2012.
Yeah,
And it was the first time that I'd seen someone react so strongly to Card-Jitsu Snow, and I showed them our soundtrack channel and stuff, and he had a strong reaction to the Card-Jitsu Snow songs, and I was like, this is cool, because I'm so used to people my age like being more familiar with like Fire and Water, but he was super memorable about all the work you did on Snow, and I thought that was super cool.
That's
Nice.
that's cool.
Definitely left an impact on
as
people.
much as a Club Penguin fan as I say I am, I'll be honest. 90% of the stuff I've looked at was years after the game closed down.
Yeah.
It's still got a pretty strong fan base. We're very passionate about the history.
Yeah, I honestly still unironically listen to your work.
Oh yeah,
Thank
no,
you.
it's great study music. I love it.
I have my own 500 plus song playlist.
Yeah.
So I was wondering with the eras, like
Yeah,
a lot of people do kind of like categorize Club Penguin into a few different.
we
time
ourselves. There's been a lot of arguments on that, honestly, but we ourselves, just to avoid confusion, tend to go era 1, 2005 to 2008 ish, era 2, 2008 to 2012, and era 3, like 2013 to 2017, and then there's the Club Penguin Island era, but that's a separate thing.
Yeah,
But usually there's a bit of argument on the names because they tend to use the AS 1, 2, and 3. However, that gets really confusing because that's a programming language for Flash, and it's not even accurate when you pick in the years. But point is,
that's a whole nother crazy story.
That's a whole nother discussion.
But I was just gonna ask in that kind of first era, it was like the stock music, right? The stock tracks. Then they transitioned into Chris and Friction music, and right, yeah, they would make their original music, and that's kind of more like into that second era we were defining. But then in like this modern third era where they redesigned the rooms and stuff, that's kind of where you stepped in. Do you recall like a deliberate intention to have a different vibe in the music, like something more hip, modern, and cool,
as we call it, the Disney Channelification?
Yeah, like there's been reports from I think Lane said in an interview once that they were trying to make it something more in line with like something you see from Disney Channel, and so they wanted the music to be very poppy or techno, where there was kind of less of that previously. Personally, I love it all, but I was curious if you were aware of like an intentional shift kind of when you stepped in and took over that mantle.
Yeah, I think like definitely we're in the modernization of everything, the art and the characters, and it's funny the player card still had that same old school
Yeah.
Penguin for so many years, though.
That he
I don't.
drew in like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
It's always funny, especially considering it was probably already outdated by 2007, and then
Yeah.
you just had this super detailed Spider-Man suit on it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that was hilarious that they kept that for so long. But yeah, we were definitely kind of modernizing, and I think like the some of the music, like I think we're going from less charming to more, yeah, like you said, poppy, mainstream.
I think that perfectly describes it. That's not a diss on your music at all, but like when you say like there's like a certain charm to that older stuff.
Yeah,
and then there's, like,
exactly.
a modern hipness to the new stuff.
And I think like my style, just how I grew up learning and playing music is different than Chris Hendricks, and how he plays is different from how I play. And to be honest, like it would have been amazing if we were both there at the same time. And like, because there's some things that he would have done so much better than me, and then I have my strengths that I think I could have applied in to complement his strengths. So, but yeah, obviously, I had to do the best I could.
One day, we'll see an epic Club Penguin band collaboration featuring every single artist.
Oh, that would be amazing.
For sure.
I always find it cool how basically all the artists know each other at least a decent bit, since of the like whole local nature you mentioned of the workplace and stuff. So even when they already left the company, they still had some connections. Especially, I know specifically you had a connection with Rory, with I have no idea what he's up to now. I'll be honest, that's one of the two composers we have the least info on. Them and Friction Music, who I have no idea. They're just basically a ghost. They
They're
have
a bit of a
zero
mystery.
info online.
I'm not like Friction Music was way before my involvement on the production team, and I think it was somebody that somebody knew, and
it was the son of
it was the son of one of the founders. And he had a local band that did some service for them for a couple of years. All I know is that they made a couple things, but they were completely disconnected from Club Penguin otherwise, and there were also some weird copyright related jungle mungle. That probably was one of the reasons they stopped working, along with just getting more people on board.
I'm not connected to them at all, so you know more than I do, actually.
Honestly, I probably do.
Blue is our librarian. He's the expert. I was curious if you recall any other maybe like unfinished, canceled, or unused ideas. Some things I wrote down, like, did you ever make anything for Rockhopper Island that didn't get used? Or there was like a canceled, it was called like the Future Fest party, and it was like something that they were gonna have the island transform into different time eras, and that got canceled. I don't know if either of those really ring a bell. Did you ever work on anything for those, or something else that didn't come around?
Yeah, like just anything that was like worked on but just canceled later on.
I'm sure there are a handful of like full projects that were either canceled or or it turned into a different version or a smaller version, like the scope was reduced and we had to abandon certain elements. I know, like from my work, there are tons of just little things, like ideas in my Pro Tools sessions from when I was writing the music that I don't have because it's all Disney property, and it's probably just gone now. I doubt.
I think we found a decent amount of stuff, so that's nice.
Yeah, so I had lots of partial ideas and stuff that because I would work on one thing and like, it's not quite right for this, but maybe I can come back to it for something else. And sometimes I did. Most of the time I didn't. I usually like to start with a blank canvas for everything. So there was lots of stuff sitting on my old work computer, but unfortunately I wasn't able to take that with me back in 2015. So but yeah, I'm sure there are a couple of things I just can't remember anything offhand that
That's
we
okay.
we would have. Yeah.
That's fair. Also,
On another note of stuff that you probably don't remember at all, and I kind of talked about this a little bit earlier. I did just before we forget, I wanted to know. This is lore stuff. Did they talk to you about? Do you know what the deal was with like this haunted mansion, Gary's uncle? Like, did they tell you who this guy was, or just like this was just like a family member? Because we don't know like what his deal is. Like, we don't know if he's like from the Victorian era and he died, or I kind of assume you don't know anything about this, but I'm asking everyone.
Yeah, honestly, I don't really. Do you know what time frame that was from? Like
That was
2012, I think.
20.
I can send you a picture maybe of him, like if it jogs a memory or something.
Also 2014, if I remember correctly. Yeah.
Okay.
He did come back in 2014 for a little bit, but he had like, do you remember the big haunted mansion?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was, he was like the owner of this mansion. It was Gary's, if you remember him.
Yeah. The big spooky music and stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
He was his great uncle, and the mansion's like inspired by like Haunted Mansion from Disney, which I love, and stuff like that. But it's just been a bit of a mystery, kind of like what his deal was, because we have not really heard much about who this uncle is. Like, where's he from?
Mr. Gary Wald. Maybe he's just an imposter.
I don't know. Shooting in the dark here.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, I don't remember any specific lore. Honestly, there are probably people standing right next to me in a meeting talking about it, and I just wasn't paying attention.
Dude, neither were we when we were kids, like playing the game, and like, the was right in front of us. You know, I get it.
Yeah, I honestly don't really remember. I remember I've seen that character before, but I don't remember any specific like storyline or lore involving him. Unfortunately.
What about you remember like the icy penguins? That was the next month, that same year, 2012. Do you remember the Palace of Ice Crystals song? And it had like these ice penguins. We have no clue what those were. I don't know if there even is a story there. I'm assuming you don't know probably much about that either, or did they say like, oh yeah, we're gonna show like who these guys are? I know I might sound like a crazy person.
They're actually secret icy clones made from the penguins who froze over during Operation Blackout. It's all connected.
Froze over during, that's hilarious. I always thought these were like just like an outfit, but I guess there's like way more to this than I thought.
I mean, I'm an overthinker, and technically they are like they were called transformations, but within gameplay they were like an outfit basically. But they were a separate species, and they had Cool in the Cold, if that song rings a bell. And they were involved with that. Like this ice penguin comes out of nowhere, and the story just does not really elaborate much on what they are, why they exist, So I have my own theories, but obviously that it's way too long to go into. But I don't know if you had heard anything like the secret to who they are. I'm assuming not.
Yeah, I think that. Well, I don't remember hearing anything specific about them as characters. My only recollection is of them like just being costumes, like from the clothes shop or whatever.
I think you ate cookies in the clothes shop or something. Turn into them, or the bakery.
So that's all I remember about them. Is it was just an outfit, but I guess there's a lot more to it.
Maybe that's the big question. Well, last thing on that subject, kind of story, but also like gameplay wise. Did you say earlier, like, do you know Puffle Wilds, which was like kind of like rooms on the island, but also an app? Was there something else planned there, like more rooms for it? Like we just got leaks recently that showed that there were like other species of puffles that were coming to this thing. But since you made music for that, do you have any clue? Like, was that some big expansion that was going to be like a huge branch, something like Card-Jitsu, but never really came to be?
It might have been, because, and that was right around the time, like where I left.
That's true.
And I think yeah, like they were definitely talking about like other, like opening up that kind of
Yeah.
Pandora's box. With
Yeah,
couples.
I think it was mainly just because around then there were a lot of budget cuts going on internally, so they
Yeah.
scaled back a lot of the apps they had worked on.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah. So yeah, there were definitely talks about, you know, different species of puffles or subspecies, and I actually, I'm not sure if any of that ever came to light. It was kind of inferred with like the unicorn puffle and
What was inferred?
like the, you know, that there's other species of puffles. Like if there's
Oh.
unicorn puffle, then you know, theoretically
There
there
was
could be like,
raccoons.
yeah,
They
'cause
had a couple other species.
yeah, they had like yeah, I can't remember what animals they were based off of, but yeah.
Like dog, cat, puffles, I think raccoons.
Yeah.
I don't remember the specifics.
Bunnies,
A lot of
stuff like that. But and there was supposed to be like birds, but that didn't come out. There was like butterflies planned, that didn't come out. The big question that we've had is like, what's the deal with these things? Because like if there's like animal puffles, well, what are normal puffles? Like in Club Penguin Island, the puffle.
They even had like a whole Pokemon thing where they evolved.
Yeah, it was like Pokemon, and they would evolve into like these other animals. And there's like concept art from Club Penguin that showed that they might have had something like that, where like you would give a potion to your puffle and it would turn into an animal. But the final version we got is just, oh yeah, there's a part of the island where raccoon puffles just exist for some reason, and we're still trying to figure that one out.
Guy.
The who? Oh yeah, the Sasquatch. Were you weren't a part of that at all, were you?
I think he made music for that party, but that's about it.
Yeah, I think that was probably one of my last compositions was for that.
There were a few. There were the ones for the Ski Lodge and Lodge Addict and the main theme Go Time and Go Time remix.
Right.
But
he's another giant mystery. There's all sorts of mysteries that we all have theories and stuff on. But no, that's cool to hear your insight on.
I mentioned beforehand something about the Palace of Ice crystals. I just wanted to talk about a little bit about that composition because, unironically, I think it's probably, I don't know if it's my favorite, but it's just one of the most unique holiday songs I think I've heard, especially for Club Penguin, because Club Penguin always went for 3 different types of songs from what I heard. There was like firstly grand emotional or just music, stuff like Holiday Medley that Chris made, just cheery, jolly Christmas music. You made a couple of things like All Aboard for the Holidays, Catching Snowflakes, and a lot of older ones.
Yeah.
And this one was a very unique, much more somber take, alongside a very interesting combination of like like emotional piano and I think EDM. I'm not a super like
dubstep or something.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not that good at the music terminology, but I just found it really interesting.
What was your inspiration behind that song? Like, was there any mindset to the? Because I do love that song. I think it's
it's honestly one of my favorites. Basically all of the Sound Studio Party ones, but I'll mention that later.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I think it was just like, I think I just had an idea and I ran with it, and it was one of those things that kind of came out pretty naturally and quickly. So I was able to get it to like a pretty full version, like not the final version, but I was able to get it to a pretty a stage of completion that I was able to show and to people, and that producers liked it. So I think my aim was to create something that was contrarian to everything else, all the other holiday music, because it was also just like the same. Yeah, it was it was typical, the same, and not that it was bad, but it was like time for something fresh. And I think like some of the direction as well was it should be like icy, and like we're having this like I like just some of the words that were thrown around at the time. I was like, okay, I think I know where I can take this, and that's what came out.
Yeah, that's honestly awesome. Really great work.
Thank you.
One music thing I just remembered was how was the process specifically for the takeover party? Since you worked on a lot of those, was it like was it a different process to work on those? Where like you had like, did you get like guidelines where you should make this song sound like this, but legally distinct, or was it mostly just based on the actual theme? Because one thing about the party, like say the Muppets World Tour, well, that is Muppet theme. It's definitely more of a world tour party, but it goes on a party by party basis.
Yeah. Well, some of those takeovers were like for the most part, music would be inspired by the theme, the takeover theme. Like the superhero party, for example. Like we couldn't.
Collide and Conquer. That's one of my favorites.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, we just had to kind of go with a genre, and treat it like superhero music as a genre, for example, and same with like I think the Muppets, we did a bunch of different like.
Yeah, that one was really interesting to me because the way it worked was that each room was like a different country.
Yeah.
And and a lot of artists worked on that because there were 10 songs in that party alone. So
yeah.
You worked on
that
like
was a big one.
4, I think. There was Mariachi Medley, English Theme, Samba Sensation, and with Bretzel Bash.
Yep.
That must have been interesting because it's like you have to do a lot of different styles for that one.
Yeah, that was the biggest challenge, especially like for, I mean, even the what's it called, the English anthem.
Yeah, the English theme. I think it was just called English theme, or God Save the Queen, or whatever.
Yeah, and that track, because I'm used to using real instruments. That track was, I don't think there's any brass in that. I think it was all, I might be wrong, but I think it was all string instruments, which I don't play, I don't own, and we can't afford to hire an orchestra. So yeah, like it's all virtual instruments, and trying to make it sound as good as real instruments is really challenging. So that was probably the most difficult one out of any of those, because like there's a lot of times I'll use virtual instruments, but I've always got real stuff in there to just help it out, to make it sound more authentic.
Like what instruments do you just always do virtually, just due to budget, or you just don't know?
I do like I record live instruments as much as I can, and it doesn't really matter if I have the instrument. I have the microphone, so if I have the instrument, then I will play it, and because and then so it really doesn't come down to budget, because a lot of times like tweaking virtual instruments takes way more time than recording a real instrument, because you're always trying to make the virtual instrument sound authentic and real.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's just such a struggle, and there's certain voicings
and honestly depend on the process, because one interesting thing about, say, Chris and Fairfield, two composers of work, is that they basically entirely work with digital instrument libraries. Like Fairfield himself, that was his first instrument he learned.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think like it play that works really well for them in a lot of ways, and like I remember there's one, I think it's like for a jetpack game or something that Chris had done.
Sky Soaring.
Yeah. And it's like supposed to be this electric guitar, but it just sounds so fake. But at the same time, it's like,
that's
it just works.
I got confused with a work you make. That one's honestly pretty interesting, because Chris doesn't tend to do electric guitars too much, since they can be kind of a struggle to sound natural.
Yeah, so it was like, it sounded to me, I play electric guitar, and it just sounded so fake, but at the same time it was like it worked. Like it was kind of like, okay, let's just lean into this. Because and sometimes that does really work, and other times if you're really struggling to trying to get it to sound real and you're kind of close but still far enough off, you can tell it's fake. That's but if you're really far away from and it sounds really fake, then it's like kind of charming. So
Yeah,
it kind of
Part of
works.
that charm.
Yeah,
like and that tends to be especially for a lot of really old work from Chris back when all he had was his old Yamaha. So a lot of stuff tended to sound MIDI, but he tended to lean into that. No, well, I always just find it interesting seeing different styles from composers. Since, for example, Chris tends to lean a lot more towards orchestral stuff, since that leans well with his digital instruments library, since that tends to be like a thing that a lot of people use for orchestra, since orchestras are really difficult to set up, obviously.
Yeah.
You tend to lean on a lot more, say, guitars, both acoustic, electric, and a lot of other instruments. I tend to really like your. Honestly, really wish Club Penguin had more acoustic guitar songs. There's only like 3 I could think of. I'll be honest.
Yeah, I do really like how my guitar. I always mic my acoustic guitar. I never record it line in. I like the tone of it naturally. And then the other thing I also have, you can see a couple of trombone,
I saw those
as well. But I use those to I'll use for huge symphonic arrangements. I'll still use brass instruments to augment, but I'll always have these layered in so that you can hear the real thing. And then the virtual brass just adds the.
Honestly, I wasn't sure that. I didn't know you played trombone. Like, for example, for Mariachi Medley, did you perform that, or was that virtual? I honestly can't tell. I'm not the best at judging that kind of thing.
Let's see. Yeah, the high trumpet is virtual. That was one of those. I was on the struggle bus trying to get that to sound real, and it's it's pretty good, but
Did you have to get those takeover songs approved by the companies? Did you have to go to Marvel and Jim Henson Studios, stuff like that? And
any of the song, so it really depended. The Monsters University songs we were I had to do original music, but they were really on top of that. We did a lot of back and forth, trying to get it to sound the way they wanted, because they had a lot of creative control over that. The Muppets,
I do honestly kind of hear it for that, since that one sounds really similar stylistically, especially stuff like University Rally.
Yeah, that was the style. It was called I think it's fight music, or
I've heard
it's kind of like a marching band sort of thing.
So they had, and that's culture. I think it's culturally something in the States that they have. It's they're just used to it, and so I'm trying.
I'd say so. As someone from the States, I've had a lot of marching band.
I'm admittedly not too familiar. I don't think I've ever seen a marching band.
It's like a university school thing.
Yeah, so it was university fight music, I think was the term that they used, and they kept saying we need to be more fight music, and I'm like, okay, I feel like I'm getting it, but at the same time I'm clearly not, because I'm so there's a lot of back and forth on that, because we were working with their producers very closly, and eventually we got it to a good spot. Everyone was happy, but it wasn't easy. And then the Muppet, I know David Fairfield did the Muppets theme.
Admittedly, that one I know that people just say it sounds just like a "Don't Sue Me" Muppets theme.
Yeah. I know I know he did a great job on that. And again, I think they were working closely, because a lot of the older stuff, Disney stuff, we didn't just get here you go, just use it. We did for some stuff like Star Wars.
That must have been a struggle.
Oh, when they gave you music to just use, is it?
Yeah, Star Wars was surprisingly easy. And I wasn't even involved in the music for that, because it was all legit Star Wars
it was
music.
all just music from Star Wars and
Yeah.
one remix made by Cold Plante, but that was not technically a Club Penguin song. That was a Star Wars remix that happened to be used in Club Penguin.
I guess that made
Yeah.
your job pretty easy that week.
Yeah, well, even all the sound effects, they're just like, here you go. You get to use
Oh
all the
yeah,
Star Wars
no,
sound
think about
effects.
it. You're right
when
about that.
like me and Toby were just like, you're like, are you serious right now? Like we just get all this Lucasfilm content to
I never thought
use?
about that. That must
Yeah.
have been awesome to geek out
Oh,
over.
it was unreal. But yeah, obviously for composing that month was very simple for me. I was able to focus on other stuff, but yeah, and then but Muppets was a bit more not as tedious as Monsters, but still there were
Yeah.
external approvals that had to happen with that as well.
Yeah, I think it was just mainly easier because most of the songs weren't really exactly Muppets themed; they were country themed.
Yeah.
Did you have an opinion on the takeovers? Because they have some controversy within the community about like how
Yeah.
many of them they would do and like how big Disney
Was
pushed their
that like-
brand.
Yeah.
Did you ever care about that,
Like,
or was that not like a thing you ever thought about?
Or
I never had a strong opinion on it. At the end of the day, what I cared about is that we were creating strong content and that we were doing what's best for the brand and and what the audience was going to like, because that's who we were making all of this for. And so I didn't have a super strong opinion either way. I've always loved Disney. I've always I went to the Disneyland as a kid. I've been to Disney World 3 times as well. And, we watched Disney movies as a family, did that as a kid too. So like, I've never had anything against Disney, and I've consumed their content since I was a little kid. So
I feel I lived in Florida for a year. I had a year of Disney in my life. So I mean, totally right up there.
I remember I was a really big Cars fan for whatever reason as a kid.
Okay.
Never got cars in Club Penguin Island had some cars, but Club Penguin never
there's a
got
Cars
Honestly-
game.
Cars
and
Online.
it was modeled exactly after Club Penguin. Like
that one, I think
because
was
Lane
it canceled or what? Or
it was canceled. So
Yeah.
basically, you were driving around as a car, so you controlled with you as a car with the keyboard, or I think you could still click, but they built it on a grid system. It just was like a cheap and quick Club Penguin knockoff, and it just didn't do very well for obvious reasons. So
did you work on customer service or something for that, or did you just like hear about it in the office?
I think I did. Yeah, I did work on customer service for that for a bit, because what happened is they centralized a lot of the customer service for games, and then eventually for like consumer products and stuff too. After this was way after my time, but when I was still doing customer service, we were doing it for a few games like Toontown and Pirates and Mars,
all I know is
Dixie
that
Hollow.
Disney had some struggles during that time because they had like 4 virtual worlds open at the same time with like 2 planned.
Yeah,
that was a whole thing. Yeah, did you have to do a crash course on all those games just like Club Penguin did when you joined?
Yeah, and we would basically like we would build into our week. We would have to like level up in the games and like play through them so that we could provide adequate support. Like most of the support was like billing, and but we still did like customer support, like player support. So we had to have some working knowledge of the games. So some of them were easier than others.
And I know Club Penguin really prided themselves in like answering every email they always talk about.
Yeah.
Did you have a lot of like, because I know I was guilty of this as a kid who wrote frustrated emails like, you guys changed the Penguin band design? How dare you? And I was like, 9 years old. Did you have a lot of like emails like that you had to reply to?
From like there are definitely a lot of players that had opinions on what we did. And obviously like a lot of times too, like I mean there were very vocal. We also had to look at it like that there like, what am I trying to say?
Like you're trying to separate, say, actual people just trying to tell you, like critiquing things, and just kids
find the message in the frustration, maybe.
Yeah,
Yeah, like, and also like the most vocal audiences were we had to take everything with a bit of a grain of salt, because the people who are writing in are not necessarily representative of
That's
our
true.
audience as a
Yeah,
whole.
honestly,
So
that's actually a talking point in the community. We mentioned a lot back then. That basically, for example, the Frozen parties, a lot of like the online community tended to really hate it, but that was actually like one of the most suggested parties.
The
Objective.
most popular party.
Yeah,
yeah,
It was huge.
yeah,
it's
and
kind of funny.
I think like a lot of our strongest parties were the totally original ones,
Oh,
as
yeah.
opposed to the takeovers or the theme, like, bringing in other brands. And yeah, I just didn't like Club Penguin. Having been to Disney parks not many times, but well, yeah, many times. It's like Club Penguin was not really a Disneyland. Like, it's not. You can't.
Only like
It
once
was,
they brought the suits.
yeah, like it wasn't really like a
Like
virtual Magic Kingdom, like that old platform.
Yeah.
Like
yeah,
it
like
wasn't
all
it was
that.
a thing
So
separate from the typical Disney image.
yeah, it wasn't a neutral platform to just plunk different IPs into
Yeah.
easily. And
Well,
I
because
think,
the lore got screwed up, man. Like that's what
yeah,
I'm telling you. They kept throwing in like Elsa, and I'm like, what does she have to do with the story?
yeah, yeah.
It's tough.
And then all the let it goes online, and like anytime you log in, let it go.
I hope you didn't have
Yeah.
to get direct inspiration from that.
Yeah.
Did you see the mascot costumes that they brought to Disneyland? Rockhopper and the blue.
All I know
penguin?
is the funny
Yep.
legs.
They came to our office first,
I saw a picture of that.
so we got to meet them. Yeah.
I'm so jealous. Like even as a kid, I want to know so bad where those costumes are right now. Like I want to like they're probably collecting dust in some storage. Are they ever gonna bust those out for some random? Like they had a Disney Channel themed night at the parks recently. It's like, hey, you could easily throw Rockhopper into the Disney Channel night. I mean, like they had commercials with those guys. I don't know. I think that it's just so cool to think about these costumes.
Yeah. Also, here's a very random question that I just got reminded of a specific thing. You made a music for a Wanda ID, right? Rainbow Rock.
You're watching Disney Channel.
Yeah, I just wonder, was that different from the other, since like it was a direct Disney Channel thing rather than just a commercial or something, and it was a remix of Alex Lazarenko's work.
So the Wand ID is something where it's this. I think it's 4 notes.
Yeah, the do.
Yeah. So basically, it's taking those 4 notes, that little melody, and applying it to your brand's theme. So whatever show or game or whatever it was that was being promoted.
Yeah,
on
and that one was
ID spot, like
Rainbow Puffle themed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we basically had to take those 4 notes and apply it to our brand. So
were they pretty chillaxed about how you did it, or was there a lot of back and forth on 4 notes?
I don't remember there being a ton of back and forth, because it was like pretty prescribed as far as like what we needed to do. So I don't remember there being a ton of back and forth on it.
Yeah,
the monsters one was the big sticking point with me. Like I never had like tons of back and forth. There's almost always revisions, but like yeah.
Pixar,
speaking of which, what would you consider the hardest like composition you remember working on? Like the hardest song to work on, like in terms of like you were just stuck on it for a really long time, not knowing what to do.
Oh, that's a good question. There are probably a few of those.
Because I know you mentioned the Muppets were tough.
Yeah, the Muppets were not super easy. Just like trying to make the music sound authentic and also real when I was using virtual instruments. um, let's see. I remember there was like a Teen Beach party.
Oh,
I remember struggling on those songs, like trying to like channel the Beach Boys or something, and just and also like referencing the Teen Beach music. And
Did you have to watch the movie?
I did not.
No. Oh wow.
No.
Oh.
I've never seen it either.
I mean, I could have and probably should have, just to get a greater understanding of whatever that is. But
anyone. I don't want to sit through that. It's
Yeah,
not for me.
I know the sequel I heard was good.
yeah, my kids have been watching High School Musical, and I never watched it when I was younger, and I'm just like,
I will tell you, as somebody who has multiple sisters, I will tell you, back in the day, that was like the Sing, and everyone talked about it.
They're
was
good.
Like the number one
I like them.
the elementary school girl Sing.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
fun. I like them.
I haven't watched them in way too long to give you an opinion.
But wow, so the Teen Beach Party was difficult because a lot of back and forth, or
I think I was just not like
like you just haven't made beach music of that style before.
Yeah, and I think as well, just like sort of in that happy carefree genre. Like if I think back, like I just remember it like being a struggle, and I don't know exactly why. Because like now, like when I think of like beach music, like, oh, I've got tons of ideas. Like I could totally riff on that and come up with something awesome right now. But at the time, I was just, kind of, and a lot of it depends on who you're working with and how they're articulating what they want. And sometimes they're maybe like not exactly giving you the clearest picture of what they want, and sometimes they don't even know what they need to convey the emotion they're trying to get out of it, and so they're like not really telling you the right stuff. But I just remember that being a struggle. And also like the school
the school
back
scene?
to school
and skate party.
Yeah.
Or the school and skate party, or the school scene?
The school room. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, I think those were one in the same though.
No, those were actually a year apart.
I always mistake that too.
Okay. Was it like the starting fresh?
Yeah, that one was School to Skate. There were three. Yeah, that one was the. That one honestly kind of feels like it feels like an instrumental for some Disney Channel song.
Yeah.
Just from the feeling of it, like.
I do like.
We're all here and because we're all here dancing and starting fresh or something like that. In my head, I imagine.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think like both of those were kind of the hardest for me, because they're both like very Disney Channel kind of themes, and that's just not typically that's not where I naturally go musically. So it's always a push to get those things out and get something sounding decent.
Yeah,
I would have never guessed that your answer was like, "Oh, Blackout was super easy," but Teen Beach and
it's always honestly really interesting seeing how like the more cheery songs were your struggle, because you tended to make a lot of those. It honestly must have been kind of something difficult to get used to.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, at the time I was also playing in bands and able to channel. And sometimes like I would just need to get something out, like on the piano or on the guitar, and just kind of I would record it, and so I wouldn't waste it. But sometimes I would just need to get some of that energy out so that I could then clear my brain and work on more energetic, happy stuff.
Speaking of like darker stuff, there is one thing. Do you remember Spooky Jazz?
Spooky Jazz. I know that title.
hotel. It was skip the ghost and the couple ghosts in the hotel.
Was that was that something you played yourself, or was that also?
Yeah, Spooky Jazz. That was all me.
Oh, it was performed live.
The clarinet was not.
But like the main jazzy part.
Yeah. The drums are virtual. The bass is real. I think that's virtual for sure. That lead instrument, whether it's a saxophone or a clarinet, but
I think it's a saxophone. But cool to know.
My last thought was, I was just kind of curious if you had a personal favorite. I was gonna ask personal favorite song or one of your personal favorites.
Personal favorite song, like composition wise, and personal favorite song to make.
I think there is one like Christmas song that I really liked.
"'Tis the Season." There's a lot I can think of.
Let's see. It might be "'Tis the Season." Yeah. I really like around like 40 seconds ish when that part comes in. That's
true.
Yeah, "'Tis the Season." I really like that part, and there's like a little let's see. It's right at like 44 seconds into that song is my favorite moment in that song. Like normally it was weird, like I got it sounds stupid, but I got chills when I wrote that part, and normally that never happens. Like it's just like it just doesn't happen, and I just
that's awesome.
I got goosebumps, and so I think for that reason, like I like that song, like it's one of my favorites. But they're also the Future Party suite of music. I'm pretty proud of that stuff.
Honestly, it's a very unique style. It honestly took a bit to grow on me. I do tend to really like the medley of Strange Galaxy, and I always like the aggressive drums in Zero Gravity Disco along with your vocals.
Yeah,
they're really creative.
Yeah, and then I'm trying to think of like what else. I don't know. I mean, it was a lot. Like, there's a lot of, I think just overall, like, there's just the diversity of music. Like, I'm really grateful to have had the opportunity to get to try out so many different things. Because, like, what job lets you do a bunch of original music like
honestly,
that?
That's the thing about Club Penguin that it's honestly sets it apart from a lot of other stuff. Is that it basically changes theme for every every time. A lot of
basically everything. Like everything happened.
Like every kind of theme you can think of, from pirate, medieval, to just something like a big concert to something simple. Like
Fingers crossed that maybe someday Club Penguin can come back, and maybe you can get a chance to do some of the other genres you missed out on. Who knows?
Look, my ultimate goal in life will be to somehow get enough money to license out a Club Penguin concert just to hear Tusk played by a live orchestra.
Yeah. Oh wow.
There is one small thing before I go. I'm not sure if you're comfortable answering this, but how did you leave Disney Canada Inc.? Were you laid off? Did you just leave on your own accord to do personal stuff, or was it some other thing?
I was laid off. I was a statistic. So
that sucks.
It was rough.
Yeah,
like,
that would
after
been
being
rough.
at the company for as long as I was, not as long as some people, but still. It was definitely, it was hard. It was a hard pill to swallow, but I mean, I don't have any bad blood. Like if I said this back then, and I'll say it now, is if they were to hire me back, then I would have said yes, absolutely. Like, 5 days after it happened, I would have said yes. or a month or today. So
Yeah, I just wanted to know, since I know that around May 2015 there were a lot of layoffs at Disney Canada there.
yeah.
Well, I'm really crossing my fingers for someday we get that Norrie Henderson, Chris Hendricks crossover. I mean, like,
Yeah.
I'll personally fly to Canada for the first time in my life.
that
Yeah.
would be sweet.
Yeah, you gotta
Yeah.
come explore the Great White North.
Yeah,
I do want
honestly,
to someday. I've never been.
I've
Oh,
never
really?
been to Canada either.
Mhm.
I've traveled to quite a few places, but I've never gone to Canada.
It's one of my top
Kelowna does look
travel
really
destinations
nice,
I'd like.
and maybe I can
Yeah.
finally meet Matt Crisco there.
Yeah, Kelowna is really nice. I don't live there. I live about 4 hours away from there now,
Oh.
near Vancouver. Kelowna is nice, really nice in the summer. It's kind of like a resort town with the lake. It's awesome. And winter you can go skiing up. There's mountains up there too. Here in Vancouver, way more people, way busier.
Yeah, I know that
there's-
Vancouver's like one of the bigger places in Canada.
Yeah. Vancouver, like if you're only gonna go to one major city, I would go to Vancouver, as opposed to Toronto. And
Oh, yeah.
but yeah, I mean, then there's also the Canadian Rockies are amazing, Banff National Park. Lots of cool hiking and stuff to do over there. But yeah, Vancouver is like a pretty I'm a bit biased because I'm from BC, but I would say definitely go to Vancouver if you ever come to Canada. Make that number one.
Will be
I'll take a
noted.
note of that. Yeah, definitely. I look forward to finally getting a chance to check it out
Yeah.
someday.
Nice.
Yeah, I didn't know
Well,
if you had any other like
yeah.
parting words you wanted to share, or if we kind of
Any
covered our
parting
bases.
words?
Or...
Yeah, I mean, it was amazing. Like we really took for granted. Well, I certainly did. I don't know if I think this is the same for a lot of people, that we really took for granted, like the size of the audience we were making all of this for. And like, I don't think I fully understood like how far the reach was until way after I was done. So yeah, I mean, Club Penguin has such amazing fans, and like always has, and I think like I'm just super lucky to have been a part of making it, and making like, having such an influence I didn't even realize I had. So it's been really like, especially in the last like few years, like kind of starting to understand that impact has been pretty cool and humbling. So thank you guys for playing it, and being a part of that story.
No problem.
sure.
I may have not played it much, but I still respect a ton of your work, and hopefully maybe
Thank you.
it can see the light of day in some other way.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really made a huge impact. I mean, I never like truly stopped playing, even as I
Yeah.
got older. I might have played less,
Yeah.
but every single party, I came into every single one. So every
Yeah.
song you composed, I heard every single one growing up. It was always there. It's so
We have
impactful.
two different perspectives here. I'm just somebody who played the game when he was really young. They kind of forgot about it for a really long time. Came
Yeah.
back and really started to appreciate, honestly, almost every element, from the art to the music to
It's so
to
special.
the vibes, and
Yeah.
even just the general goal it had. I honestly feel like a game like Club Penguin makes a lot more sense in today. Today, the
A
whole
safe space for kids.
a fun and safe space for kids online.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's too bad. I mean, I don't know if there's anything similar out these days, but it'd be really cool to reprise it and have it come back.
Chris is working on Club Parrot, basically Party Parrot World. It's called.
Oh yeah.
And they're trying to do a similar thing there with the.
I honestly hope you can
Akapo
get
parrot
some
birds.
similar opportunity someday.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they have some Club Penguin alumni collaborating on it, as well as like they're getting fans that grew up playing the game, so
Yeah.
they're trying to get that DNA into it. I definitely am loving seeing that, and I hope someday we can see something similar rise in a similar way. Or
Yeah.
Disney's whole thing is nostalgia. I mean, it's a matter of time before they dip their hand into the Club Penguin bin, So
Yeah.
we'll see.
We'll see. Honestly, hopefully, honestly, part of my goal on this whole music project is just to get the word out there for artists, since most artists were pretty much entirely unknown. Like, I find it interesting that I don't think you ever had any sort of public appearance on anything Club Penguin related. Like I don't even think you made a cameo as like on something like #Waddleon.
I think at most, I think there may have been like my hand holding a coffee mug or something, but I never made like a talking appearance.
Was that just you? Was that just a you thing, or was it just didn't happen to get an opportunity?
I feel like I've always been a bit more of a hermit. And so I would just like do, quietly do my thing and kind of stay out of the way. I would never like go volunteer for something like that. So I think that probably has a lot to do with it.
Okay.
Last thing, like 10-second answer. Do you remember what your penguin looked like? Did you have an outfit?
Oh yeah, I was gonna ask the exact same thing.
Okay, because
I know your penguin's called Seabass, right? I think Polo confirmed it.
Yeah, I used to be Seabass, and then I had to there was a list of names that were leaked, and so I had to abandon it.
Oh really?
And then so I had to create a new penguin altogether. But I don't remember at all because I wasn't really playing for
right.
Like
I was just mostly testing.
Yeah, exactly. So I was just going in and I doing the audio. Like that's what I wasn't really checking out outfits. But I don't know. I remember like not being allowed to wear the beta hat or anything that would attract attention.
Did you have every item available? Is that like how it worked?
Yeah, there was for testing, like you just were able to grant yourself everything, or someone would grant you everything.
And yeah, of course, somebody with the beta hat, they would call you a filthy cheater because you were registered in 2007.
Yeah, exactly. So I wasn't allowed to wear that.
Is that why they didn't want like people knowing your penguin was? They didn't want. I don't know.
I know that the moderators had a policy because the whole polar bear thing. They didn't want to bring attention to the mods. That's why they stopped using the moderator pin, for example. They wanted to just not like be obvious that there was a moderator there, so they wouldn't just go somewhere else.
Yeah,
makes sense.
One thing.
Yeah.
Can you at least tell me, what color was your penguin? Can you at least remember that?
I don't remember. I might have been brown.
Like your favorite color brown?
I remember when I first started playing the game, like I would change outfits of quite a bit, and then I kind of stopped, and just kind of left it.
Honestly, kind of same.
Yeah,
it's a normal player activity. Yeah.
Yeah, and so. And yeah, like I didn't need to test the the outfits out or anything like that. I was just testing out music. So
I see.
Yeah, and sound effects. So I don't even remember.
That's fine.
That's fine. Just wanted to know.
The mascots kind of have like like they're infamous. People know their outfits. And sometimes they'll draw like fan art.
Because a lot of Club Penguin staff tended to have that from like the simple leather jacket that Billy Bob had to Chris's whole screen hog thing.
Yeah.
So I was just imagining something like that, but with the name Seabass.
Yeah.
Now I'm just thinking of
fishing rod.
I'm thinking of a sea bass playing a bass.
Yeah.
A bass. I mean,
they had a fish costume. You could be like in a fish costume.
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah. After I had to get penguin ID'd, we called it. I kind of gave up on my character.
So we'll just say, what's your favorite color, and then let's see what we can think of.
I have to say I think blue is my favorite color.
Yo, try to guess which one's my favorite.
I'm assuming you're thinking like if we put like a penguin that represents him. You're saying like a light blue penguin. Do like a dark blue penguin. What's your blue preference?
No, ocean blue. He's elite class.
Yeah, I'd probably dark blue.
Dark blue.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a iconic penguin. That's what they were.
Yeah, that's
back in the penguin jet days.
The OG.
Like technically the OG was the old blue, but yeah.
Yeah, no,
Well, that should be all
that's
for
fun.
now. Honestly, thanks for our time. Sorry if we ended up going a bit longer than the planned time. I
Yeah,
honestly
that's okay.
got
Actually,
sucked
it
in.
worked out today. Some days it would not have, but today it did. So
Good to know,
yeah,
at least.
yeah,
Hope you have a fantastic day and
yeah.
enjoy
Thank
your
you.
summer. It's winter here, but enjoy your summer.
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah, we're
That's-
getting some nice warm temperatures here, about 30 Celsius. So it's nice. No rain right now.
that's
That's
great.
nice.
Yeah.
I hope you have a
Yeah.
good time this season.
Good time. Just one last thing to say. Waddle on.
Yeah. Waddle on. Haven't heard that in a
Waddle
while.
on.
Thanks, guys.
See you
Let me know
later.
if you have any follow-up questions.
For sure.
Okay.
For sure. I'll let you know and have a great time.
Thanks a lot.